introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about your organization, and then whether you have 1 or 100 registered apprenticeships, just talk to us a little bit about that. So Steve, if you want to go, not sure. Steve, not Steven, but sure. Steve, if you want to go ahead. So.
My name is Steve Olive.
I think this is on. Can y'all hear me without this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There you go.
My name is Steve Olive. It's an honor to be here today. My company, Oasis Aviation Maintenance. We're located in Noonan. We're primarily a general aviation maintenance and avionics installation company, and we're a small company. We have about 14 employees, and right now we have 4 apprentices. We'll start another apprenticeship cadre in January with probably 4 or 5. So we're ramping up our apprenticeship program pretty rapidly, and we can talk about why here shortly.
Use the one that works.
So my name is Clay Fordham. I work for Armstrong World Industries in Macon. If you're not familiar, we're the world's largest steel and tile manufacturer. We have about 400 employees. I work in the maintenance group, so we had a shortage of mechanics. We had a hard time hiring mechanics. Our business is a little bit different because our maintenance guys have to have a lot of skills required to run. We have about 35 acres under roof, so we have a fairly large facility. New technology, old technology, which makes it difficult to find experienced mechanics. So we sat down with Central Georgia Tech and we partnered with them, put together a program. We had 4 apprentices that just graduated from a 2-year program, and we have 2 more that are starting out now. And it's been a really great partnership.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm Steve Bernhard. I'm here with the local Northrop Grumman and Warner Robins. So we're primarily, in our site, we do electronic warfare repair and radar repair manufacturing. We employ about 450 folks locally. We started an apprenticeship program back in 2018, and we have about an 8,000 hour OJT requirement where we take an entry-level person coming into our facility as what we call an engineering technician, and with partnering with CGTC, we move them into an electronics technician role. And over that time, they're gaining about that 4 years of experience. So it's been a great partnership with CGTC thus far. And we have 5 registered apprentice right now, and I think our first 2 are just finishing up their 8,000 hours of OJT.
That's amazing. So I heard that both of you guys are using Central Technical College for your RTI. Steve, can you just explain a little bit about how you do your RTI process? Because I think it's a little bit different from what they're doing.
Yeah, when I first started thinking about training, because we were running into the same problems everyone else has, which is a shortage of trained employees, we actually looked at starting our own school. We were going to start it from scratch. So what we did is we went to West Georgia Technical College and started discussing how West Georgia Tech might be able to support us. But we have a relatively new Department of Labor approved apprenticeship program. It's only been around since 2019. So there really wasn't a clean niche that we could put our people in. So what we ended up doing is we became the RTI instructor and the sponsor. So our program's a little bit different because we're doing the training from end to end.
I think it brings up, like I said, a unique perspective. There's so many different ways to look at apprenticeships. You can have your RTI delivered by a technical college system, which does a great job of delivering those solutions that are already out there. You have a new employer in a field that's not highly recognized, but is highly in demand, where they have to come up with those solutions on the fly, but they're able to do the same thing and deliver that RTI that's industry recognized. So when you look at an apprenticeship, Steve, how would you define an apprenticeship? Just because obviously you're new to it. So what do you think, or how do you define an apprenticeship?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to fall back on the earn while you learn kind of mentality when it comes to apprenticeship, but I think it's much more than that for the employer, because to be honest with you, it gives us an opportunity to not only teach the skills that are needed in our trade, but it also gives us an opportunity to train the employee how to be a good employee, how to do basic things that are not necessarily prevalent in society when they walk in the door. And it also gives us an opportunity to vet these employees and make sure that they're a good fit for us. And sometimes you don't know that right off the bat. We do an assessment beforehand, but there's only so much you can assess. And so for us, when they come through the door, it gives us a chance to groom and grow the employee as well as training them in the skill.
So I would say from our standpoint, probably some of the same things that Steve said. The other thing is the employees make an investment in their future. We're making an investment in them. The way our program works is they work for 2 years and they go to school for 2 years. They're working during the daytime and they're going to school at night. That's a tough job, especially in a maintenance career, where some weeks they're working 50, 60 hours a week. So it's quite a bit of a commitment. You also have the ability to look at those people and kind of measure them like you were saying. And it's just, and the other thing is when we put the jobs out, these are people that want to work in that career specifically. Yeah. So our first 4 candidates we hired internally. And when we posted those jobs internally, we had a lot of people that wanted to work in our group. So that was a benefit for us. It's not just somebody looking for a job, they actually wanted to work in maintenance. So that's probably it.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, and for us, it's similar to the other 2 gentlemen in their programs. We bring our team in, and we worked with CGTC early on I think at a hiring career probably back in 2018. And we hired current students at CGTC and brought them in, as I said, as an engineering technician. And then what we did is we signed them up so that while they're going through their schooling, there's a 54 credit hour, I believe. ET14 is the electronics technician, and then they can add the 3 classes to get their associate's degree. And what Northrop is doing is we worked with the state of Georgia, so we also pull in some HOPE grant money, and it's $0 out of pocket for our incumbent workers. So for them, their investment is in their time. So they invest the time. We work with them to allow them to go to school when they need to be off and attending classes. CGTC has bent over backwards to help us to ensure that courses are available really around our work schedule. So these young folks are working their 40-hour work week, attending school at night, and then what we do is we give them really a free education. It's their investment in time. And then for them, that's a 66% pay increase when they finish the program. So it's significant for them, and it moves them up into a different category. We have one apprentice right now that she's completed her education at CGTC. She's enrolled in Mercer for engineering. And we're going to help her achieve that. So it's the investment of really good employees, like the other gentlemen have said, that helps us to grow and invest in our employees.
Yeah, I think everyone said the same thing. You heard investment a lot there, and you heard commitment, right? So that's one thing I love that you guys said that, because it truly is a commitment. Because an apprenticeship isn't just that train and pray model. We really are invested in our future when we start apprenticeships, and we help those young men and women along that path. Thank you so much. So I'll just continue with you, Stephen. So when you look at your organization, what led you guys to start a registered apprenticeship? And is this your first foray into apprenticeships, or how did you get started in apprenticeships?
Yeah, so go back to 2018. Yeah. I think it was Executive Order 13801, I think, was an apprenticeship executive order, came from the president. That rolled to our, at time, CEO, Wes Bush, in, I think, June of 2019. 2019 came out and said, I'm sorry, it was in 2018, June of 2018, he came out and said by the end of the second quarter of 2019, Northrop Grumman would invest in 100 apprentice programs. So that rolled across my desk somewhere around March of 2019 with about 3 months to spare. So we worked real quick with CGT. I see Mike out in the audience. Mike was a crucial part to helping us get that set up. We work, we work with the state of Georgia. We brought in some HOPE funding. And like I said, the schooling has bent over backwards really to assist us. So it was a commitment really from our company towards apprentice and this type of the work that we perform, and an investment to the company to bring in more apprentice.
Thank you so much. Clay?
So mine was a little simpler. We were trying to do some long-term strategic planning for the maintenance group. We've got a maturing workforce. We're having trouble hiring people in for mechanics, and so I worked for Boeing in my past career, and we had a partnership with Central Georgia Tech with some training. And basically my boss just said, you got any ideas? How do we do this? We got to get new people in here. And so I said, I don't know. I said, let me brainstorm it a little bit. So I went on Central Georgia's website, looked up some names, made some contacts and made some calls. We had a meeting in June of 2020, and we had people register for the program in August. I hate to use the word seamless, but it's really been seamless. They've been over backwards.
I like that.
In the beginning, we were concerned because of being able to get people in classes at night. We went from semester to semester. We always had the training. We always had the instructors. The instructors work with our guys. When we have a down day, our guys could work 60, 70-hour weeks. The instructors made sure they knew what they were teaching them. They worked with them on their schedules. It's been a great partnership, and the guys really appreciate it. It's been a great program.
Mine was completely by accident. Like I mentioned, we had talked about creating a school because our industry was extremely short-handed. And if you have any familiarity with aviation, you've got the FAA that kind of oversees all aviation in the country. There's a lot of emphasis on pilots. There's a lot of emphasis on A&P mechanics. And then we were right in the middle with avionics technicians. And there's really not a lot of FAA oversight or control or training. Those things aren't dictated. So we were having to create that within our own industry. And so when we started looking at creating our own school, then we started bumping up against things like accreditation and all the difficulties that go into that. And so for us, it was, what other avenues are out there that we might be able to create some training opportunities. And that's how we found apprenticeships. And started out with West Georgia Tech, but a lot of butting my head up against the wall trying to figure out how to do this. Apprenticeship.gov was somewhat helpful, but it can lead you down some paths, and it's not always the answer that you're looking for. So through that relationship with West Georgia Tech, I bumped into this guy. And to be honest with you, I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be here without him. Because you need somebody to mentor you through that process and to help you find out what else is out there. Because there's a lot of organizations that are out there to support your apprenticeship. But to be honest with you, when you're working all day, every day to grow your business and build your business, you don't always have a lot of time to search and figure all that stuff out. So having somebody like Danny who can mentor you through that process is key. And so that's kind of how our apprenticeship came to be. And we're still figuring it out. There's still a lot of things out there that you're learning as you go. So if you're thinking about this, don't get discouraged. you're going to butt your head up against the wall a little bit, but you just got to keep driving through and you can make it happen.
Very humbling. I didn't do anything.
Yeah, you did.
Steve's a great employer. It takes great employers to have apprenticeships. But I heard a couple of things, and each one has a different story. But each one said there was a talent need, right? So each one had to hire people. There was a skills gap, and there was a skills requirement. So those are the key components of an apprenticeship. When Alex talks to a team about starting an apprenticeship program, they start to talk about the skills that are needed, what the skills gap is, and I think our apprenticeship team does a great job for employers out there wanting to start apprenticeships as well. So Steve, obviously you touched on that a little bit, but expand a little bit more about why an apprenticeship. Why not just going and using some of the other workforce models? But I think you use some more of those workforce models as well. So expand a little bit upon that and let us talk about
Well, for us, like I said, there's not really a formal training pathway for avionics technicians. Most avionics technicians come through the airframe and power plant mechanic side, and then they learn that skill, and some come through the military side and they learn a skill and they come into it. But there really wasn't a formal pathway, and so in 2019, when the FAA and the Department of Labor approved the avionics technician apprenticeship program, it just opened a door for us. And we just kind of walked through it. We're one of the first people to try this, but creating that apprenticeship program and putting it on the list so that we could walk down that path was the key. And then with Danny's help, we got it added to the High Demand Career Initiative too, which it originally wasn't on. So there really wasn't a traditional model to bring avionics technicians into the program. So we just kind of figured out that if we do this through apprenticeship, we get the employee that we're looking for, we train them to our standard, and we're helping the wider workforce because the need is great throughout the country. So.
powerful statement. Thank you.
So I think there's two parts to it. One of them is ownership. You know, if you're a 16-year-old kid and your parents give you a car, you take care of that car a certain way. If you turn 16, you get a job, you earn the money, and you buy your own car, you treat it a little bit different. The people that are in the apprenticeship program have an ownership in their education. They're having to work to earn it. It's something they wanted or they wouldn't have put in for the program. So it's a little bit different. That's what they wanted to do. If I was just looking for a job and I put in for any job at Armstrong, I'd get any job. And so I would learn to like that job and grow in that job. But if I put in for something specific, there's a little bit more ownership in it. And I think the second thing is that I've drawn a blank.
We'll just let you talk all you want. So.
No, I don't want to do that. But I think it's that, you know, it works better that way, because there is that ownership with the program. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to piggyback on what Clay just said. So it is for us as well. It's all about the ownership of the employee that wants to grow. I mean, we have people that have come in as interns and have worked their way up to director level positions. So, but you have to want to grow. And what we find are those employees that are part of our apprenticeship program are committed to, you know, the company and to growing and staying in that company, and then take advantage of every opportunity that the company offers them with education. So like I said, it's just for us, it's been a really good learning experience. It's our first experience with an apprenticeship program, and I think, as Steve said, ours was kind of seamless as well. It was very easy to implement, and it has been working out well. And the employees that we have that have gone through the program are educated and performing above their peers. So.
And that's great, because, I mean, they said some really key terms there. They said ownership, so the person takes ownership for their success, right? They said growth. He said finding the right fit. He didn't say finding the right skill set, right? He said finding the right fit, which those are the great parts about an apprenticeship. You find the person that wants to be there, that wants to learn, that wants to grow, and you teach them what they need to know. That's awesome. Thank you. So I'll continue with you, Stephen. So what was the greatest challenge that you've had starting this apprenticeship? And then what can you tell somebody out there that wants to start an apprenticeship, maybe ways to make it easier for them? So.
I can't say that it was really hard to start a apprenticeship.
There you go.
You know, like I said, you know, I knew I had a 3-month window to get a program in place. So it was, you know, for me, the first call was to CGTC, and I think actually I'm going to throw Mike back on the table there. Mike was our phone call that we had, and Mike came over and we prepared some documents for what we were looking for, and really for us, I mean, other than, you know, military you know, getting out of the military or retiring from the military, there's not a big pool of you know, skilled labor, you know, in the type of work that we perform. So we immediately went to the college system and CGTC. And I think it was Kristen Englert reached out to Mike, and I believe within a week we had Mike on site. We talked through a program. He gave us some points of contact. You know, really it was a couple meetings and a couple phone calls, and we had what we needed for curriculum. We sat down with the CGTC team and we looked at what we were looking for as part of our OJT, and we pulled in our incumbent workers at the time, and we had 5 sign up immediately. We had 12 interested, 5 were wanting to invest in their future. They understood the commitment and of their time, you know, to the education piece of it. But all in all, we rolled out June 28th. So I had a July 1st due date, June 28th, and we were rolling, and it was, and we've been going ever since. So we've had a steady influx. You know, not everybody stays with Northrop Grumman. You know, people move on. So some people have joined the program, some have left the program, some have left the company. But for the most part, our initial 5 are all at the point of finishing. And then we also gave our employees towards their OJT. A lot of these employees were early on in their career with Northrop, so we backdated their OJT. So we gave them credit for what they had already done and applied it towards the apprenticeship program. So you know, they looked at that as a positive as well.
Yeah, I love that you're able to start with your incumbent worker force, to be able to upskill your current employees, to be able to continue that career growth for other people as well. Thank you. Clay?
So can I back up to the last one now that I remembered?
There you go.
So the biggest benefit that I want to bring up was the work habits. So if you take a seasoned mechanic that has worked in the industry for years and years, they have work habits. When you bring them in to work, you can train them as much as you want to, but they still maintain a lot of those old work habits. When you bring an apprentice in and you train them in how to do the job, and we partner our apprentices with a skilled first-class mechanic for the 2 years while they're going to school. So they get to go to school and they get to learn the trade, and they get to come back and they get to apply, and they create those good work habits.
Yeah, learn the right way from the ground up.
Yep, exactly. That's the biggest benefit. So going back, I'd say there's a little bit of investment of time in the beginning. You have to determine what it is you want. So what we actually did was sat down and looked at the course outlines for the different courses they had. Went back and we sat down there with our mechanics and with some of our engineers and said, which of these courses makes the most sense? We don't want to put people in a course just to say they took it, but we want something that has some value-added benefits to us as they do the jobs. We came up with the course outline. So I'd say in the beginning there's a little bit of an investment in time, but once the apprentices start the program, it pretty much runs itself. Central Georgia Tech took care of the daily ins and outs of what needed to be done. We would get the courseware that was needed for the next course. We would get that for the employees, and then it was very seamless. It was they took care of almost everything. We just supplied the guys and they showed up, and that's about it, really.
Thank you. Steve?
I'm going to condense about 6 months of headache into about 2 minutes. Get to know Charles Chambers, your work source board, and somebody at the community college or the technical college system. And I think that will lead you down the path, because I struggled with that. As far as developing the apprenticeship program itself, we already knew what we needed to train, and so we had that developed before we even went into the program. And then with the information that's out there based on the occupation, that'll give you some good guidelines as well from apprenticeship.gov and other places. But the key is, if you want your program to get off the ground quickly, from my perspective, if you'll communicate with those 3 entities, you'll save yourself a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the apprenticeship team talked about that earlier when you talk about the college system, the employer, and the other workforce partners, having them all at the board at the same time. It makes it a little bit easier. So we've heard a lot that you guys partner with the technical college system. We heard that you partner with local workforce development boards. Steve, can you talk a little bit about what you're doing right now with the K-12 system and what else you're doing for outreach as well?
Yeah, the biggest thing we're trying to do right now is work with the vocational education in our surrounding counties. A lot of the young apprentices right out of high school that are coming to us, they know they don't necessarily want to go to the formal college route. They may or may not know exactly what they want to do. But in our particular area, we're just south of Atlanta, so we've got a tremendous amount of Delta airline employees, A&P mechanics, pilots. So a lot of the kids in our area know aviation or know something about aviation. So we're already tapping into an interest that may already exist there. So for us, working with the local schools is a key, and that's kind of where we've placed our focus so far. But surprisingly, the folks that are coming into our program are kind of all the way across the spectrum. I've got a 38-year-old in my program right now that was a medical tech. I've got a 25-year-old in my program right now that came out of diesel mechanic. And then I've got a couple of guys that are right out of high school. So as far as reaching out into the program, you know, I'm looking for some certain aptitudes, not necessarily skill sets, but there's certain aptitudes that we need for our career field. And so it's not as simple as just, you know, going one place and finding a population. It's finding folks with the aptitude and the desire to do this. And I think that's one of the things you need to focus on with your apprenticeship too, is make sure you're seeking out those people who really want to be in your program.
Steve, do you have anything to add or anything else you want to add? Or?
The only thing I would say is that we make seal and tile. We're not experts at what to do and how to find people or train people. So what we did a few weeks ago is we went out to Central Georgia Tech, took some leadership folks from our plant, went and sat down with them, and basically we maintained that partnership and said, this is what we're looking at and what do we need to do, and they've given us some ideas. So from career fairs to talking at the high schools, we're just starting to initiate that plan right now. So we're in the beginning stages.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, and then just for Northrop, you know, we're bringing in people. I mean, this is our entry level position, so it's hard to garner from a 30-minute interview somebody's work ethic.
Right.
So you know, we can tout all the different types of programs that we support and what we have available. We will have some employees that express interest that we don't push right into the apprenticeship program because we want to see that skills and that commitment towards the program, because what we don't want to make the investment either, and we don't want them starting school and then dropping out mid-program. There's an investment of time and a lot of work that does go into just making sure that we have the employees coming into the program. But it's you know, again, for us, it's entry level. We're not taking, you know, we often, we have a butcher, baker, candlestick makers, and we bring them all in, and then we train them. So, you know, kind of what Steve was saying down at the end.
Well, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to ask you guys one last question. Then we'll get to the audience. But this is, everybody out here, if you had one success story to share with the audience and say, hey, this is the reason why you should do apprenticeships. What does that success story look like, either for the program or from an apprentice perspective?
Well, I mean, we have one young lady that she's our first successful completion of the program, and like I said earlier, you know, she's so committed to finishing it up that you know, she's taken advantage of some other educational assistants and enrolled in Mercer Engineering, and you know, I can't wait to be part of, you know, her ceremony when she finishes that, and we can move her into an engineering role. So.
I would say for us, the apprenticeship program is a win-win deal for the employer. So it's a win deal for the apprentices. A couple of our guys have spoken to me over a couple of years and said, you know, we didn't know if we'd make it through the program. We appreciate y'all working with us. Central Georgia Tech has worked with us. They have a sense of pride of going through the program. One of the things that I've tried to do since we've ended that program is get them some recognition to kind of invigorate the program with the rest of the facility, and honestly with our company, because we don't do a lot with apprentices in our other facilities either. But our guys have really appreciated it, and it kind of shows in their work ethic. So.
I think the biggest success for us is our very first apprentice was a 8-year veteran of the Navy. He was a submariner electrician, and he came into our program from an underwater aspect, and now he's in the air. But the reality is his skill set that he brought into it, and the love of what he was doing, he was our guinea pig, really, as the first apprentice. But he's super successful. He's actually running part of our program right now. He's the lead on my training. He's the head of our training program because he came out of that background as an instructor in the Navy. The bottom line is, don't be surprised if you get people into your apprenticeship that you're not expecting. They may come from a varied and different background, and they can turn out to be your superstars.
That's the best statement I've heard. Powerful statement. We're going to go ahead and open up the questions to the floor. I'm sure there's questions.
Hi, I've got a question. Thanks for your employer perspective. So as the registered apprenticeship, you have to have that on-the-job learning piece. So as employers, what was your selling point to get your current employees to be those trainers? And what was the challenge?
They're overworked. I mean, really, that was it. You know, as an employer, as an owner, a business owner, one of my chief tasks is to grow my business. In order to grow your business, you need more work. And so for our senior employees, it was pretty easy for them to understand that, you know, we can relieve some of your workload by bringing in somebody to help you. And mentoring, you know, it's one of those things, in my case, a lot of our older employees really enjoy the mentoring part. They like seeing somebody progress and succeed, and so I think that's a part of it. And you've got to sell it. You've got to do a little bit of selling to your employees as you bring the apprentices, because it is going to be more work on them. They're going to have to spend more time. Jobs are going to take a little longer. And as a business owner, sometimes that's not what you want to see or hear. But I think the long-term goal, you got to keep that in mind too. That we're going to be producing more. We're going to be creating more work here soon because we're going to have people that are trained correctly to do it.
Our guys are mechanics, so you're giving them a free helper for 2 years, so they loved it. But some of the guys that were doing the mentoring are some of our more mature mechanics, and they looked at it as an opportunity to share what they had learned, and it gave them some ownership in the process. Mechanics go out and do a job every day. Nobody ever asks them their opinion. They never get involved in anything. you're asking them to mentor the future of our maintenance group, and our guys, it was never an issue for them, but mainly because they got a helper.
Yeah, and same with us. So Northrop Grumman being a large corporation and having 450 people here locally, it's still a family environment. So for our guys coming in, we asked for mentors right in the beginning and had very few that raised their hand. However, as the apprentices were going through the program and seeking help, there was never a time where somebody didn't stop and help walk them through. And I know, that really became evident during the pandemic when they were going through school and at times, labs that they would normally take, on site were shut down. And how do you enhance that education? They were doing it at work. So they were coming in, hey, I have something on an analog circuit and I don't know how this works. And I'd go find them over in the corner, pulling something apart, going through an analog circuit. So, not always what you want to see because we have production schedules, but that's okay. It was okay. I mean, we worked through it all, and we never had a lack of support for our people going through the program.